All right. I'm. I knew at the time that like how sinister and terrible the thing I was going through, but I want to express it on video because it's like I feel like I kind of live my life in denial of what I've been through in order to like cope. But it's like, yo, like I've been through something really bad. Um, so 20 years ago, um, my mom was dating this guy. I met him for a couple days, and then he he assaulted me. And so my treatment by everybody in my life, my family, the police officer, put on the case, like, and at the time I was really young and I didn't understand like how everything, like I'm like a really like sensitive, compassionate person, like very empathetic. And so when I was younger, I just assumed like everybody would be that way. It's like it to me it just made sense. Like why would you not want to be that way? But many people aren't. C'est la vie. So I just thought, like, oh wow, like I've been through this terrible thing, and my family is gonna do what families do, and they're gonna like, you know, be there for me. And nobody in my family was there for me. In hindsight, I was being treated like it was my fault that this person that I had just met beat the hell out of me. And let me just explain to you just how bad of a beating this was. And that's the whole point of this video is what I'm trying to talk about is how like my mind was warped by the way I was treated after this event. So let me explain how bad this event was. I was at my parents' house. I was like 22, 23. And we came back from a camping trip, and my mom yells at me every day. It was really like torturous for me growing up. I have CPTSD from it, which is a thing. You could look it up. And I there's somebody walking by right here and it distracted me. I don't know what to. Shit. I lost track. Where was I? I have CPTSD. My mom yell at me all the time. Fortunately, I realized growing up, like I knew like her behavior was wrong, and I think like a lot of kids, like I still was affected like any child would, but I think it helped that like deep down I believed that her behavior was wrong. Um, but of course, like I didn't know that. The younger I was, the more I just was just like I didn't know any better. I didn't know that it's not like you don't treat people that way, and she's just a very difficult person. Um, and it's not okay. So, anyways, here I am, 22, 23. Like, I definitely know, like, her behavior is not okay. But at the same time, like, she's my mom, and I'm a conscientious person, and I love my mom, and I want to respect my mom, even though she's not behaving in a, a you know, in a, her behavior it's not respectable. The language, the aggression behind it. And so I'm being yelled at like normal, and my usual response is to get really sad, and I cry. I would cry pretty much every day, even at 22, even at how old am I right now? Like, shoot, I think I cried last week because it hurts, when you're like trying to do your best and then somebody just is abusive towards you that is like the most important person to you. It's like, so like, if you're like, just realize, like, I want to have a relationship with my mom, and I realize that, like, anytime I'm spending time with her, I'm just having to go along with the ride. Back then, when I'm 22, like, I was way more dependent on my mom, and I was still living at home, and I really didn't understand the abuse I was going through like I do now until just in the last year or two. It's taken me like years. I first started studying psychology like 22 years ago or 24, something crazy, a long time ago. And I've just kept at it ever since. So we're back from the camping trip, which was an hour away. I drove separate. I get back. My mom wants help unloading the car, so I'm back to help her unload the car. And I'm being yelled at. And at this time, I had a car detailing business. And my mom's new boyfriend, he's like... And my mom hasn't had like a lot of boyfriends in my life, just... my stepfather, my brother's dad, and one other, and then now this new guy. So my mom's yelling at me. We're in the garage. He's hosing down my mom's Ford Explorer, relatively new V8. This is nice. And I saw what he was doing. I'm thinking to myself, like, what is he doing? Like that's not how you wash a car. You don't just like hose it down when it's filthy dirty from a camping trip. Like, it needs to be like soaped up. But anyways, who cares? It's not my car. I'm not going to worry about it. And my mom's yelling at me. And I walk around over to the front of the house. I think I was about to go in the house. My mom's still yelling at me. I turn around. This guy is squirting me with the hose like this. He just like sprays me, and he sprays me again. And I'm just dumbfounded, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he steps up to me really quickly, like he's running, and breaks my nose. Just boom. I've never been in a fight in my life. I don't know how to react. I grabbed my face, like I saw blood just splurting onto my hands, and I'm like, whoa, like. And then when I'm holding my face like this, I feel a kick across my body. It was just like my whole body like this, just boom, like. And at that point, I just fall to the ground, and I go unconscious, and I come to what seems like moments later on my neighbor's lawn, like at least 50 feet away. And at that point, my mom puts me in the shower and then takes my clothes and puts it in the washing machine. Like, that happened so fast. My brother and my mom saw the whole thing, because my brother was standing in the doorway. I could see him when I got... Well, I don't know. I guess I don't know if he saw the whole thing, because he was behind me. But he did come out. He may have heard my mom screaming, and then come out and saw me. So I don't know. My brother's never talked to me about it. And that's another thing. Like, so he probably still has stress that he hasn't dealt with from this, you know? So he's terrified. I can see it in his face. I'm freshly showered. I put on clothes, and then I'm severely battered. I could feel like I'm all messed up. And then I go to the police, and then my mom calls my cell phone and is like, "You're kidnapping your brother." Because my brother comes to me, he's like, "I don't want to be here. I want to go with you." I'm like, "All right, well, I'm going to go to the police station." He's like, "All right, I want to go with you." So we go to the police station. Well, on the way to the police station, my mom calls me. He's like, "You're kidnapping your brother." I turn around. I'm like, "Sorry, Mike. Like, that was a mistake." You know? Like, that's an example of, like, you know, my mom having so much power over me that, like, against, like, that was literally, like, not even morally a sound decision on my part, you know? And see where the conflict is, you know, where it's like the right thing to do would have been to keep my brother with me, because that was a dangerous situation. By taking him back to where my mom was, acting irrationally, covering up, like committing crimes as we speak, you know, not telling this guy, like, you need to go, like, basically, like, I felt, nobody's ever asked me how I felt. You know, therapy can be so expensive, and I've learned so much, and it's like, I really want to make money and go, you know, go to therapy. And I'm thinking there's this number, if you look on your insurance card, there's a number on there for mental health. And I'm thinking I want to call that number, because, like, all the work that I've done, like, I'm not going to be like Matthew Perry, you know, paying for 30 years of therapy, and, like, you know, like, a lot of those years just, like, not even really taking advantage of it because of his addiction. Like, I want to really, like, get my value for my money. And so I feel like all the stuff that I've learned will help me, like, when I do get a therapist, like, help me find a good therapist, and then, you know, move things along rather quickly, hopefully. But anyways, back to the story. And, like, my back, like, you see me going like this all comes down to, like, that attack, you know. And, like, I'm realizing in physical therapy recently, they showed me how, like, I'm still going to physical therapy for this. I've gone so much, and, like, I was in so much pain that it was hard for me to identify what was going on. Like, I thought all my pain was in my shoulder and up here, but it turns out, like, it's my whole left side is in pain. And I'm thinking, like, oh, like, maybe that's because I got kicked, like, the hardest kicks when I was laying on the ground. I probably got kicked on my side. And so, like, this, and so now I feel like there's this knot. And I'm like, oh, I bet you where this knot is in my gluteus maximus is where I was kicked. And so what happened, it was my body got all tight there. And because the way I was treated, the fact that I got no help, like, okay, let me go back to the story. So I bring my brother back. He's terrified, but I'm like, sorry, I'm like apologizing, I think, you know. How could I remember that detail? But I would imagine, you know, like, you know, Mom, just explaining to him, like, I can't kidnap you, you know. And I'm pretty sure he was going to be safe. He was 10 years younger than me. And I didn't feel like I was putting him in a dangerous situation. But at the same time, like, I probably should have ignored what my mom was doing. I shouldn't have even picked up the phone. For sure. But like, that's the mode I was in at 22, 23, is if my mom called me, I picked up, because if I didn't, there would be like a cost, like there would be a price to pay for that. Like she would get her revenge. So, or at least I was made to believe. And that's the way everybody around my mom, even my dad, that's the way everybody responds to her. Like they always, like the way, whether they see it or not, they might not believe that they're reacting that way, but that's the way everybody reacts to her, as if like, things are a little different now. Like people, I think my brother, his wife, like we all want to have a good relationship with her, but we know, like, anytime we do call her, whatever it is, like, she's gonna inject some negativity. Like if you're already under some stress, like maybe it's not the best day to have contact with her because it could get worse, so, and it's a shame, because like we love her. She does so many like nice things for everybody, but she also wants to control things and she doesn't see what she's doing that's like making things like painfully difficult for people, and it sucks because it's hard to, like, if you communicate things to her, it doesn't seem to work. Anyways, it's just all a painful process. Like I try and I do things that things have gotten a lot better, but I don't want to tell people that that's your solution, because there is a cost. Like, it's so stressful. The only reason I go through it is because I don't want to pass these behaviors on to other people. Like, I'm trying to understand myself better. In early psychology classes, one of the first things that they taught us, based on like Erickson's theory, is that a child represents their parents' unresolved issues. So I'm trying to understand my mom and my dad the best that I can, so that I can better myself. Because, like, and try to not be in denial about these behaviors that I've adopted 100%, which a lot of people try to do. They try to think like, oh, I'm not my parents, when how could you not be? Well, unless you weren't raised by them, obviously, but I'm really talking about the people that raised you. So back to the story. I'm trying to be thorough here. So I go to the police, and they're the first police that I talked to in Devonshire Division. I believe it was a guy and a woman. And they looked at me like, wow. Like, they could see that I had been through something. And those are probably the only people in this whole process. Oh, and then the bailiff on my second appearance in court were the only people in this whole process to look at me and treat me like you would expect somebody to have been treated who had been through what I had been treated. That had been through what I had been through. Like, nobody in everybody treated me like somehow it was all my fault. Really, like, I don't think that people believed that, because I'm just a really logical person. Like, how could anybody believe that? But looking back in hindsight, I look at it like, wow, my mom right from the beginning started trying to cover up the crime. So the fact that the detective that I ended up interviewing, he had me come to Devonshire Division, and it was like right after, I was still in terrible pain. I was all broken bones, and like mainly my nose. Like, it's still, you can hear my voice is like different because of the deviated septum and the break, and it's crooked. So I did go to the hospital. My dad took me to Olive View, and they're like, we're going to have to re-break it in the emergency room. They're like, we'll have to re-break it after it heals. I went to an ear, nose, and throat appointment back at Olive View. I waited for an entire day. I don't remember if I came back for a second day. I waited until super late. And then around dinner time, I was like trying to get it because they just have this door. So I was trying to just talk to somebody in the door, like, hey, like, I've been waiting here over 8 hours, and you just have to wait. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, are they ever gonna call me? Like, I've been here 10 hours, they never called me. Like, and so I gave up. And because I was still gonna have to pay. Like, I wasn't gonna be free from what I understood. I think it could have been, actually, because I didn't really make a lot of money. But I didn't understand anything about any of that when I was 22 or 23. So back to the emergency room appointment the day of. Crazy thought. So the emergency room doctor told me, like, oh, you have to do this with this paperwork, blah, blah, blah. After you're done with all that, come back and talk to me. I want to tell you about something. And, like, I was so exhausted, I never went back. And I'm so curious because that day, I had a hernia that opened up. And I was so scared about what was happening, like the pain that I had there and what I felt and everything. I didn't tell the emergency room doctor exactly what happened. And so I was really scared but they took like x-rays of my body and stuff. So I figured if there was a problem, they would say something. But then the fact that the doctor said that, like, thinking back, anytime I think back, I always think, like, man, like, what did it was probably nothing, Like, I actually, like, in my life, I've had, like, people, like, approach me, like, kind of, like, in creepy ways where they like me, guys and girls. And so it could have been that. It could have been anything. He's a very young doctor. But for some reason, I didn't, I don't know if it was out of fear or just thinking, like, it was probably nothing. I never found out. And now I'm so curious, now that I'm remembering that, what he wanted me to come back. Honestly, like, just to be real here, if it was something important about, like, my medical situation, he would have just told me. Who knows? So I go to bed terrified for my life, but at the same time, like, that's why I went to the cops. Like, so I never explained, like, how I felt. Like, so I felt after it all happened, when I got put in the shower, and I'm like, it's just like my mom and this new guy and my brother. Like, my brother's terrified, but for the most part, it's just like business as usual. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what the hell is going on here? And so then I leave for the cops because I'm thinking, like, okay, like, I'm in the Twilight Zone, like the most Twilight Zone moment I've ever felt in my life. Like, what is happening here? Like, I just got battered and life just goes on. Like, that's not how this works. Like, I've seen enough movies. I've seen enough Lifetime movies. Like there's, like, all this stuff that happens now after this. And none of it ever happened. Like, even my dad, on the way to the hospital to, I'm, like, all bloody. I'm, like, holding stuff to my nose the rest of the day because there's blood pouring out of my face. He's explaining to me, like, it's a car accident. Like, oh, the courts are going to look at it like, how much of it is your fault and how much of it is his fault. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what? Like, he's a kickboxer. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention that part. He was, like, a professional kickboxer or something. He was gnarly, dude. He was ripped, dude. Like, six-pack, like, the whole thing. Like, dude, for, like, somebody in there, like, twice my age and 40-something, like, mid-40s, the dude was, like, in the shape of his life. And, like, Tom Brady style. So yeah, that's what... Like, that's probably an important part to understand in the picture of the assault is, like, I'm this, like, lanky, kind of stonery kid, like, that's never been in a fight in his life, that just got wrecked by a professional kickboxer. He just laid it. Like, ever since, I kind of felt like he was actually, because how they study this stuff? I think that he intentionally kicked me in certain pressure point areas in order for me to, like, let's say, like, mess up my libido, which it did, cause me to like not be able to digest food properly. Like somehow he knew the places to kick me that were gonna really like cause permanent damage. And not that that's true, but you know, I've had friends that are into fighting, and I'm just curious about everything. I'm always asking questions, and I know like that's something that I've heard about. You know, they study, you know, like the Vulcan death grip. So, where was I in the story? So I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone, and I knew I had to go to the cops, like, because I had to protect myself. Like, I'm gonna end up dead. That's what my thought was. I'm like, literally, this dude is gonna kill me right now, because he might be like figuring out, like, oh shoot, like I just went too far. And if he did kill me, like, who knows what my mom would have done? Like, she probably would have helped cover up the murder. Like, who knows? Like, she was already trying to cover up like the most gnarly assault I've never even seen somebody get beat up worse than what happened to me. Like, literally just broken to pieces. Just, you know, just like I'm still like, dude, it's been 20 something years and I'm still broken from it. You know, like my nose, it's like the bone like it fused in weird places, but I could still feel that like things aren't normal through my whole body, like every day, of every moment, especially when I'm trying to digest food. And it's just like, oh, like I don't want to get into the details, like that's another video. Dude, I should probably turn off my vent. So my little vent variable thing, I put in a new propane tank getting ready for winter, and I broke my propane tank's right next to it, and I broke my variable knob. And so now this thing is making all kinds of noise because it's either on or off. So I gotta order a new one of those, which is like $8, no big deal. Fortunately, they're still available, so I can put the same one because the way it looks really nice. So, where was I? So, yeah, so I tell, you know, my aunt. My uncle's like not doing well, one of my uncles at the time. But he kind of has this attitude of like, you know, I'm telling him about it, and it's like he doesn't want to hear it. And I kind of felt, I don't know, I could be like completely wrong about this, because like, I don't remember anything specifically said, but it kind of felt like my uncle was mad that I called the police. Like somehow this should have been handled within the family. I'm like, what? Like, I don't even know. I just met that dude. Like, what do you mean? And then my aunt, my uncle's wife, she was very young, 30 years younger, or 20 years younger than him. And she was just a little, like 10 years younger than me. And like, I think it was just really over her head to even try to handle a situation like this. It's over anybody's head, but she certainly handled it wrong. I think her point of view was like, you know, my mom loves this guy, but it's like, no. Like any rational mother wouldn't still want a relationship with some new dude that just did that to someone else in their family. Like, that's insanity. But yeah, you know, I mean, that's what these, that's what these mental health disorders cause us to like not make the best decisions. But it doesn't mean just because something's pathological, like you can't just like forgive the person. Like, you know, like they're like, I still worry because it, like, she's still that same person. Like she does, I think she does better now, but I do see the potential for her to just fall off the deep end one day. Because like back when this happened, it just, you know, it's like coincidence. It's like, you know how when you say something and then all of a sudden it pops up in your Google search and it pops up in your like ads on a website or something, and you're like, I was just talking about that. And now we find out like Google's, well, anyways, like total, that has nothing to do with what I'm about to say. Like days, a week before all this happened, my mom, like, as I said, she would yell at me every day. And a week before this happened, she tells me, I wish I could just beat the shit out of you kind of thing, you know? She said it a couple times. And then, what do you know, like a week, maybe less than a week later, that's what happened. And so, you know, I would imagine like she said something around him, like she was complaining, because that's what she does. She complains about everybody to everybody. And so I'm sure he got an earful about me. And even though like I was like the greatest son, she'll even say, like, you know, when she compares me to other babies, or she compares me to my brother, how I was the perfect child. And even to this day, like, I'm like conscientious to a fault. But, you know, when you're dealing with someone that's like, you know, cluster B personality, that's something that they do. They just, in order to make themselves look good, they lie about you, you know? So, I'm trying not to say you know. So I think that's why the experience when I went to try to get help from my family, like my mom already corrupted everybody. And they're also cluster B personalities. And they just all fell for it. And nobody was on my side, not even though like it shouldn't have even been sides. It should have just been like, oh, like we need to help our family member. Like, how is there sides to this? I was exiled from my mom's house while going to college. Going forward, I had pain right here. Like, I just started getting bad grades and I didn't understand why. Like, I was a good student my whole life. I was such a good student. And all of a sudden, I'm in pain in the school desk. And the one class that I could remember feeling the most pain sitting in the school desk was economics. And that was the first class I ever failed. And think about that. Like, when it came around time to drop the class, I could have dropped the class. But in my mind, I'm thinking like, no, I'm going to buckle down. I'm going to figure out this economics and I'm going to pass. And I was unable to do that. So looking back, it was just like, dude, like I was in terrible pain. I needed to go to doctors. There was no Obamacare back then. I hadn't been to a doctor since I was a kid, like my pediatrician. And I was basically screwed, you know, because I didn't take care of myself when it comes down to it, but I didn't know how to because nobody ever taught me to. And that's what I've been doing since then, you know, is learning how to take care of myself, you know, and, you know, like my parents have helped, like they do love me and there is like stuff that they do that helps me. Like if it wasn't for them, like I wouldn't be where I am now, like now. You know, my dad helped me, like, build this van. And, of course, every day he said, like, discouraging things. And sometimes I would think, like, gosh, like, sometimes I wondered if I would be better off. Like, because I would literally cry because of the negativity. Like, I just can't handle, like, the constant barrage of negative comments day after day. But I just always try to stay positive. And the truth is, like, this van wouldn't be as good as it is if it wasn't for my dad's help. So, like, whatever sacrifice I made by, like, putting up with the abuse, like, I got help building this van, like, a lot of help. So, just something to think about, like, if you're thinking about at least attempting to have a relationship with your parents that are cluster B, like, there can be an exchange, and it may not ever be fair, but at least you're getting something and you're getting to like understand your parents in a way to help you understand yourself better. So my mom, she gave me a bunch of money because she gave my brother a ton of money to help with a condo that he purchased. And so she felt like, only to be fair, she had to give me something too. Which, hey, like, I'm not complaining. I kind of looked at it as restitution, which I hate doing, you know, but it really feels like it. It feels like, oh, finally I got something. Although, like, you know, another thing that got me to this point in my healing journey is I was in 2 car accidents, and I thought to myself, when I've been in more car accidents than that, but these 2 are car accidents, not my fault. And I've been in, I think I've been in 2 car accidents that might have been my fault, but they were like when I was a teenager. So, these 2 car accidents were bad. And my back, because I was already messed up, libido problems, all this stuff, I'm like, okay, I gotta go to a doctor because my back's even worse now. Like, I literally, the first time around, like, I lost my girlfriend because, like, I couldn't function as a human being. I was in so much pain. And so, I was feeling better, and then I got $20,000 from that first accident, and then after they wasn't going to the physical therapist and the stuff anymore, the pain was back. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to use this 20 grand and devote it to doctors. So I went to a neurologist. This neurologist ended up giving me ketamine and oxytocin and other stuff that I tried and all this stuff. But ketamine ended up being like breakthrough, because what I recognized is that my body and trigger points were tight and my body was bound up in places, and ketamine helped it relax. I would do yoga and I could stretch it would be too painful to stretch my hamstrings, for example. But if I had just a tiny bit of ketamine, I could really lean into those stretches, and so I was having more productive stuff going on. But honestly, like, I think it could have been done without ketamine. It just would have taken way longer, and it would have been so painful. And the ketamine also allowed for serious adjustments, which also led to extreme pain, because anytime your spine is like forced into a better position, it wants to like creep back, and sometimes when it creeps back, the muscles are just, they don't know where to be, and they get uncomfortable and inflamed. And so the speed at which ketamine allows you to like fix things can also lead to a lot of pain. So be aware of that. Like, if you're trying to be aggressive by using ketamine, like, you're going to get some growing pains. And the key also is that low dose. Like, if you take enough ketamine, you're going to be able to straighten your spine out. But then once the ketamine wears out, it's going to like get tight again. So you're trying to use the leverage of the wearing off of the ketamine, like, which can happen literally over a month. It happens right after you take it, over 15 minutes. It happens over 15 hours. It happens over 15 days. Like, slowly, your body's getting back. It's like the ketamine makes it loose, and then it's going back to normal as the ketamine wears off. It's crazy. So, that seems like a tangent, but like, I wouldn't be where I am without ketamine, I think. I really do. I think it might have been possible without, but it would have had to be like some really aggressive therapy from some very talented people. And what ketamine allowed me to do was to do a lot of my own work of trigger point. Like, I have all kinds of implements and balls and things, and I just work on it myself. And you really get into that meditative zone with the K, where you could just go on and you don't want to, you're not like, oh, I want to stop doing this because I have something more important to do. Like, no. I would be in that zone of therapy under K for 2 years. Like, I literally wasn't making money. I was just doing therapy on myself, living off the money from the $20,000, because my bills were low and I felt progress. And so I just wanted to devote my life to feeling better for a couple of years. And here I am 10 years later, and I'm really starting to see like light at the end of the tunnel. Whereas 10 years ago, like, I would feel like so much profound change. I would think like, am I going to die? Like, at some point, is everything going to get into a weird place, and then I'm just going to break my neck because the muscles, like, they were doing weird things. It's hard to explain, but now the difference is before everything felt out of balance and pulling in weird ways, and now today, after a bunch of stretches and exercises, I'm feeling very balanced. Like, I'm feeling like all my muscles are where they belong for the most part. but I do feel like some pulling, like it's trying to mess it up. And so I constantly, like a boxer, I'm constantly like just trying to stay loose. Okay, back to the story. God, this is a long video. So I guess I guess I should try to conclude this thing, because it's really about how I felt after, how nobody came, like I never got like the proper, like it was never handled how a situation like this should be handled, where, you know, people are like attending to my needs, like making sure that I get the mental and physical therapy to repair the damage that I had been through. And my parents' negligence in this, I don't understand it. Like, for years I felt like they know better. Like, they know that I needed help. Like, why didn't they help me? And for years, even before this, like I had like back pain, and so I would continue to tell them like there's something wrong with me. Like, I need to see a doctor. Like, I don't know what to do. And they wouldn't do anything about it. Well, my dad once took me to a chiropractor and then just left it at that. And he paid for it once, and I basically like was just working to pay for the chiropractor my whole young life, which is just crazy, right? Like other kids my age were like going to the bars and dropping like $40-$100. I was like, my big expense was the chiropractor, because for me to feel good, I needed to go more than once a month at least, and I didn't back then. People didn't make as much money anyways. This was the 90s. So part of the reason why this has been like such a long recovery process is because my back was already having problems before this happened. And you know, when it happened and my hernia tore open, and then I didn't operate. I didn't even go into that detail. I didn't operate on this inguinal hernia for years after because I was scared, and it was reducible, but then it wasn't reducible, and that's when I was like, okay, I need to get this fixed, because I was researching you could get gangrene because your intestines can get strangled, and I've had panic attacks over that because I'm thinking like, oh no, maybe they did the surgery wrong, and because after the surgery, I've been in so much pain, and then so a year after I went to the doctor, like, I don't know what's wrong. Like, I'm still in pain. And he's like, oh, your hernia is fine. It's not this. And I'm like, well, what is it? And he's like, I don't know. And he gave me no referral to any other doctor to find out, like, what to do. And so until after I got the 20 grand from that accident years later, I wasn't able to really do anything about it. Like, it took like 5 years till that happened. I wish I could. I hope this is making sense, because I'm jumping around a little bit. So yeah, like basically, like I realize now, like I think a big part of this pain was also like this mentally, like how my family and everybody, like I didn't, like my friends, like I never really had like compassionate friends. Like, you know how they say opposites attract? So like I was always attracting people in my life where they're opposite of me and they're just not very conscientious. And so like they kind of try to be there for me, but nobody was really there for me, like for this. And then I had this like girlfriend right after that was like terrible for me. And it was like, I was like, you might look at it as like I was like trying to punish my mom, but I was really just desperate for like anybody to help. Like I needed help. And so just having a girl there that seemed like she loved me felt like I was getting help, you know, because she would like massage my shoulders and help me relax, and you know, so that seemed like it was helping. But in the long run, like she was just as bad or worse. She was worse than my mom, and so things got worse for me. Like, and basically what I'm trying to say is like these cluster B personalities, like so why did my parents not help me? I think it had to do with like, and why they wanted to blame me is because what does it say about them? You know, like it was like a selfish thing that they did because it made them feel better about themselves. How can I elaborate on that? Like, if you can understand what I'm saying, like, and say it, put it better than I did in the comments, like, please do. But yeah, it's like, if it's my fault, then they don't have to take the blame for their part in it. You know? I said it again. And that's crazy, right? It sounds sad. And it's like, how could parents that love you do that? But like, that's, as human beings, like, we need to like overcome our natural urges to like be terrible. And then like, also they're not super conscientious like me, you know? Like, obviously, like, you know, like the way my dad, like when I'm working on the van and he comes over and says things like these the most discouraging things, like, that's not conscientious. Somebody conscientious wouldn't do that, you know? He tries to be conscientious more than my mom does, though. Like, he has more awareness over like what it means to be conscientious and tries to make an effort, like, but then he does it in like a passive aggressive way where like he'll just be standing there waiting for you to finish something when like you don't know that what he's doing, like it. And like, if you have a question or whatever, just say it. Don't just stand there and stare at somebody. Anyways, where was I? Try to stay on point here. Like, I like feeling that feeling, like, you know, when you have parents like this, it makes you feel like this deep down, like, not good enough. And then being attacked and then having people treat me like it's my fault, it like emphasizes that. It's just like, thank goodness I'm a truth seeker, and mentally I have the strength to look at these things and be like, that's wrong, like, early on. And I think it's also interesting, and like, I'm glad to like put this on video and hopefully people sees it. It's just know that like, just because you know that it's wrong doesn't mean it doesn't like mess you up bad. And thank God that I'm coming out. Like, I feel myself coming out of it. I still have a relationship with my parents for the most part. I'm able to, when things get bad, like, you know, if you're out with them, like, walking away is like heavy, you know? That's where you're kind of trapped. But I've learned to just not be trapped, you know? Don't go places far. Keep everything close, which is already happening because my parents are getting like very old. So going far is just like getting kind of unreasonable anyway. And don't allow yourself to be trapped in any situation. Like, that's the key to maintaining a relationship with your family that's like this. And as far as like, I don't know what to do. Like, I feel like that's why, like, coming to the realization that like how profoundly messed up the situation that I was in can make people, makes me think like, oh, like, I need help. Like, I can't do this on my own. I need to like call that number that's on my little insurance card on the back of it. Yeah. And for mental health, and go and now I know what to do. Like, this is what I want to target the most, is I'm going to tell the person right off the bat, like, look, I've been through this. People denied my reality. They made me feel like it was my fault, that I was criminally assaulted and my life changed forever. I received no restitution for it and paid thousands of dollars in health expenses. And I'm angry about it. It sucks. Like, I was never made whole from a crime, like an obvious crime. Even the detective treated me like I did something wrong. Like, what? What did I do wrong? Like, what did I do to deserve somebody that's never, like, doesn't even like to, like, I literally capture spiders and flies so that I can release them. I don't like to kill insects. And I was assaulted like that. Like, that's insane to me. You know, like, I feel, but now I understand, though, why it was all like that. And it doesn't change it, though. This was still wrong, and I still think that I'm, like, it may have really, it messed me up. Like, I heard Dr. Romney in a video yesterday talking about how messed up that will make you, that situation. So, yeah, so I know exactly what to tell my mental health professional when I start on the first meeting. I could be like, hey, look, this is it. This is, I've found probably the thing that I'm most angry about in my life, and I still haven't been recognized for this. I could, like, I resent my parents for it, and I could just go to my parents and be like, hey, I resent you guys for this, but they're cluster B personalities, so, like, obviously, like, the worst thing I could do is expose them, but then maybe that, like, I don't know, like, you know, like, I gotta balance out all my options, and I think a mental health professional can help me, like, really see the future on this one a little better than I can myself, in order to make the right decision and not just be like, you know, like, just blow up in the moment, you know, like, because what I see myself doing is saying no, and then what's happening is I'm being treated like I'm the worst person in the world because I said no. And that's what you're going to find in these situations. But I think it'll be helpful to speak to a mental health professional just to be sure that I'm getting the details right, that I'm saying no without being aggressive myself, you know. Because, like, you know, when things get heated and I just walk away, that could be viewed by other people as abusive, right? But I don't ignore, like, I don't discard. I don't be like, oh, I'm done with you. Like, I've never been that type of person. I'm always the, like, most forgiving person. And so I've come to understand that, like, I can walk away. Like, when a conversation gets crazy and I don't like it, I can walk away. Like, that's not ignoring. You know, that's being like, oh, I need space. You're welcome to have your space at any time. You know, and I'm doing that genuinely. I'm not doing that to control the situation. I'm doing that because, like, all this, like, I'm realizing, like, this is the problem. Like, I feel it in my body, and I'm like, oh, there it is. It's happening. And sometimes I don't even understand where it's coming from other than that direction. And then I see who's in that direction. And I know I need to get away from that person. It happens with strangers now, too. You know, like, you're ordering food somewhere. And, like, or the best place where you need to not ignore this feeling is, like, you're about to hire a service person to work on your car, you know? Like, that's a commitment where you don't want to have, like, a difficult person. So, yeah, so I'm learning. And I want to talk to a mental health professional and find out, like, you know, and I could read about this. I could look up this stuff more and read about this more, which I will. But I really like the idea, like, now, because I have questions to ask you know, because, you know, I didn't really have questions before. I was just learning. And I'm at a point now, after studying psychology and learning, I have these questions that I could try to answer myself. But I would love to, like, talk to somebody about, you know. So if you're a mental health professional and you just want to be my friend and just, like, and talk about, like, these ideas and stuff, like, man, like, I would love that. Like, that would be so cool. Like, it doesn't have to be like a therapy session. I would hire you, but I don't have money right now. Yeah. Peace, man. I'm David Livide. I make YouTube videos. Now, I live in this van. No Limit Van Life, Dave the Uber Slave are two of my YouTube channels. Critical Malibu is a third. And yeah, I'm hoping to get out of this pain and devote my life to making videos and informing the public on, like, all the things, all the wisdom that I've learned in my years. Peace. Love you guys. And comment, like the video. If you want to see my videos like this, where I'm just, like, rapping, like this video. And then the, you know, YouTube will know. that you like this type, this style. Thanks, guys.